I had become president of Texas A&M University in August 2002, and by October 2006, I was well into my 5th year. I was very happy there, and many, but not all, Aggies believed I was making significant improvements in nearly all aspects of the university, except football. I had originally committed to staying 5 years, but agreed to extend that to 7 years, summer 2009. Then my wife, Becky, and I would finally return to our home in the Pacific Northwest. The week of October 15th, 2006, the week that would change my life, started out routinely with several meetings. Then I took to the road, ending up in Des Moines, Iowa, where I was to give a speech on Friday, the 20th. Just past 1 p.m. that day, I received an email from my secretary, Sandy Crawford, saying that President Bush's National Security Advisor, Steve Hadley, wanted to speak to me on the phone within an hour or two. Hadley's assistant was quite insistent that the message be passed to me. I told Sandy to inform the assistant I would return Steve's call on Saturday morning. I had no idea why Steve was calling, but I had spent nearly 9 years at the White House on the National Security Council, NSC, staff under 4 presidents, and I knew that the West Wing often demanded instant responses that were rarely necessary. Hadley and I had first met on the NSC staff in the summer of 1974 and had remained friends, though we were in contact infrequently. In January 2005, Steve, who had succeeded Condoleezza Rice as George W. Bush's National Security Advisor for the second Bush term, had asked me to consider becoming the first Director of National Intelligence, DNI, a job created by legislation the previous year. Legislation and a job that I had vigorously opposed as unworkable. The President and his senior advisors wanted me to make it work. I met with Hadley and White House Chief of Staff Andy Card in Washington on Monday of Inauguration Week. We had very detailed conversations about authorities and presidential empowerment of the DNI, and by the weekend, they and I both thought I would agree to take the job. I was to call Card at Camp David with my final answer the following Monday. Over the weekend, I wrestled with the decision. On Saturday night, lying awake in bed, I told Becky she could make this decision really easy for me. I knew how much she loved being at Texas A&M, and all she had to say was that she didn't want to return to Washington, D.C. Instead, she said, "We have to do what you have to do." I said, "Thanks a lot." Late Sunday night, I walked around the campus smoking a cigar. As I walked past familiar landmarks and buildings, I decided I could not leave Texas A&M. There was still too much I wanted to accomplish there. And I really did not want to go back into government. I called Andy the next morning and told him to tell the President I would not take the job. He seemed stunned. He must have felt that I had led them on, which I regretted, but it really had been a last-minute decision. There was one consolation. I told Becky, "We are safe now. The Bush administration will never ask me to do another thing." I was wrong. At 9 a.m. on Saturday, now nearly 2 years later, I returned Steve's call as promised. He wasted no time in posing a simple, direct question. If the President asked you to become Secretary of Defense, would you accept? Stunned, I gave him an equally simple, direct answer without hesitation. We have kids dying in 2 wars. If the President thinks I can help, I have no choice but to say yes. It's my duty. The troops out there were doing their duty. How could I not do mine? That said, I sat at my desk, frozen. My God, what have I done? I kept thinking to myself. I knew that after nearly 40 years of marriage, Becky would support my decision and all that it meant for our 2 children as well, but I was still terrified to tell her.